And good evening. And so I have a question. What's positive about being a libertarian? I sometimes wonder, and it makes it easy to forget, especially when I notice that there's just negative things that happen. But sometimes it just seems like there's just certain things that are just positive, like freedom, wanting to be free in your actions and not be held down by an authoritarian figure. It's one thing we have, or the ability to think for ourselves. But a lot of times it just seems like there's a lot of negativity. And I don't really know what that's about. And I don't know what there's this thing of wanting to get out the sorting hat of anger and figure out exactly where someone belongs and if they're libertarian enough. Now, I've explained I'm probably not a small L libertarian, and there's a couple things that I was thinking about on that. One of the things is that I don't know that I agree with the non-aggression principle and not acting unless acted upon. I'm not sure I agree with that necessarily. And I know one of the reasons that I came into this philosophy was reading a lot of Ayn Rand, and I don't think that she was necessarily for the non-aggression principle. So. But I've explained that the reality is if you have a group, like if you have the Libertarian Party and you have the Republicans, you have the Democrats, and you have the Green Party, then you look as an individual and you decide what is closest to what you are. And I may not be a libertarian, but I am closer to a libertarian than I am to, say, the Green Party or the Democratic Party or the Republicans. I believe in liberty, and I believe in freedom of man to not be entangled in other people that can tell them what to do and what not to do. Individual choice being really important, and also human rights being really important. For some reason, there's a lot of people in the party right now that I'm not sure give that much credence to human rights, and that concerns me. And things I was going to show you, like sometimes we'll have guests and stuff. We have some guests coming up pretty soon. But right now, tonight, we don't. And part of that is because it was Thanksgiving weekend, and I just really haven't had the wherewithal to put anything together. And I just got back from shopping and ended up overspending a little bit. I don't know if you've ever done that, but that's not a fun time. The one thing about, though, when I overspend, I don't get the ability to just keep overspending until the cows come home, like the government does. But that's kind of what it is. Anyway, got a lot of turkey. Made a turkey dinner with the green bean casserole and the potatoes and the stuffing and all the stuff. And then someone brought me a turkey dinner Wednesday, so I need to eat that pretty soon. And yeah, lots of different things. Feel free, if you're in the YouTube chat, to tell me what you're doing. What are you doing for Thanksgiving dinner? Also, feel free to like and subscribe and turn on notifications for maybe something that you definitely want to find out about. Um, I'm really tempted to sit there and talk about all of the altercations that I've seen on Facebook, but I don't really know how that would be of value. And I really don't know. I don't think that it really would. Right now, I don't think we have anybody running, and I went through the list of people that did pretty well. I noticed that the Mises Institute is talking about the UBI, and we could go over that, I guess. If I go into the thing and look at that, I tend to agree is with the UBI here. We'll look at it from David Gordon in the Mises Institute here. Kind of read along with you. This is was posted. David is all of his attribution and everything, and you can find this on the Mises.org UBI on the Mises Wire. In recent decades, proposals for a universal basic. Oh, what's my information? But I've already signed up for that, so I'm not doing that again. In recent decades, proposals for a universal basic income have aroused a good deal of attention, but supporters of the free market have the most. This article, a Hayekian case for free markets and universal basic income, and Michael Cholby and Michael Weber, editors of Future Work Technology and the Basic Income, Routledge, 2020. The philosopher Matt Zalwanski has made a good case that free market supporters should endorse a UBI, but I'm not convinced. As Zalwanski rightly says, Murray and Rothbard, Robert Nozick, and other libertarians oppose coercion, defined as the use of or threat of force against those who haven't violated rights. Friedrich Hayek thinks that what is wrong with coercion is that it makes a person subject to the arbitrary will of another. If you coerce me, I can't live my life by trying to achieve my own goals, but must do what you tell me to do. To prevent such domination, Hayek says society should be governed by general rules that apply to everybody. In that case, people are free to lead their own lives, in most cases doing so by peacefully supplying others with goods or services. A problem yet remains. According to Hayek, some people in a free market society can't provide for themselves, even if they are paid a competitive wage, enough to enable them to meet their minimum needs. And even worse is the situation of the old, infirm, and disabled who cannot work at all. In this unhappy circumstances, they depend on others who may coerce them into performing degrading tasks. Those in this class should be given a minimum basic income to remedy their plight. Zalwanski agrees, but thinks Hayek doesn't go far enough, and he contends that there are Hayekian grounds in favor of the extension he suggests income to those unable to work. If you can work but don't want to, you don't get the minimum basic income. Zalwanski points out that implementing Hayek's proposal would require means testing recipients, a consequence Hayek not only accepts but embraces. But administering such tests requires bureaucracies, and this leads to arbitrary control over people's lives. Just what Hayek wants to avoid, and to the growth of government power, of whose dangers he has continuously warned us. A universal basic income eliminates this danger, since it's no longer up to no longer up to government officials to decide who gets the money. Zalwanski also endeavors to deflect an objection to the UBI one which I'm sure has occurred to many readers. Even if a UBI has points in its favor, it has to be financed through taxation, which violates people's property rights, just as supporters of the free market would shun proposals to conscript people to care for the disabled and infirm. Shouldn't they also reject the UBI? Zawadzki ingeniously replies that non-anarchists who accept taxation for some government stuff. Zawadzki is right that there are people who can't make it on their own in a free market, but he hasn't gotten to the heart of what is bad about their situation. As he sees it, the problem is that because they cannot generate enough income to survive, they may be subject to the arbitrary will of another. The state of affairs he deems coercive. That is indeed bad, but it isn't the essence of the problem that these people can the bad consequences that they may ensue if these unfortunates do succeed in getting resources from people. Why extend coercion to include cases in which someone faces undesirable options but isn't threatened with force? As Zawadzki himself points out, someone who refuses to aid to another is just declining to engage in exchange. Why is this coercive? Zawadzki's reply is obvious. He would say and does say that there are cases where, because all your options are bad, you don't really have a choice, and you are in that sense coerced. If, for example, the owner of the only oasis in a desert refuses people access to water unless they enslave themselves to him, isn't it reasonable to view these people as coerced? But this reply ignores the point of the objection, which is that it is not the lack of resources that is coercive, but arguably the consequences of this lack. That someone can pressure people into doing what they strongly desire not to do. Zawadzki's argument seems to rest on the dubious premise: if state of affairs leads to a situation in which people can coerce others, the state of affairs is itself coercive. I hasten to add that I don't accept the contention that the situation where someone faces pressure to do what he abhors is coercive, but I'm just assuming it is the purpose of the present argument. There's a difference between circumstances that give you no good options and situations where others either physically compel you to do something or threaten you with such compulsion. To this it may be answered, what difference does it make whether you call the plight of those who cannot make it on the market coercive or not? They still lack the resources they need to survive, but this ignores the dialectical situation. Zawadzki wants to say to libertarians, you favor the use of coercion only in response to coercion, but this counts as coercion too, therefore you should support taxation to aid these people, and for further reasons a UBI. Given this thesis, the key to Zawadzki's argument is what I have called the dubious premise, and you don't accept it. You don't accept it, the argument fails. He's in fact saying that the state's giving people money in order to reduce the chance that they will be subject to extended sense of coercion should itself be taken as response to coercion, rather than a violation of libertarian rights. Although this doesn't affect the substance of the argument for UBI. A passage of Zawadzki's article sheds light on an important controversy, and in my view requires modification. He says, for libertarians, freedom is understood in terms of abstract rights, which are themselves understood in a historical sense. And thus, the libertarian we can never tell simply by looking at the character of a social relationship, whether it is state or freedom or unfreedom. A man is being dragged fighting into a car by stronger freedom is his freedom being infringed? That depends. Is he criminal is being justly arrested by the police, or if you prefer by the dominant protection agency? Then despite all appearances to the contrary, the answer is no. His freedom, that is, his rights, are not being infringed. The soldier is told when to eat, when to sleep, what to wear, and who to kill by his superiors. on threat of severe punishment for disobedience. Is he free? It seems that there is no set of social arrangements so oppressive, no amount of being bossed around by others that is incompatible with freedom, so long as that situation arose in the right way. Whatever arises for a just situation by just steps is itself just, and whatever arises from a free situation by freedom respecting steps is itself free. The contrary I have in mind involved Robert Nozick. At one point in his career, and Walter Block on one side and Murray Rothbard on the other, was about whether you can voluntarily sell yourself into slavery. It would be absurd to say that the voluntary slave remains free after the sale. The point of the sale, after all, was to enslave himself. The absurdity would be analogous to the arguing that a king who voluntarily abdicates remains a king. Thus, the principle that whatever arises from the free situation by freedom respecting steps itself free, acceptable only if people have an inalienable rights they can't freely give up. But what have Rothbardians to say about the aged and infirm? Of course, these people merit help, but why bring in the state and coercion? What is the matter with voluntary assistance? It is claimed that this would be insufficient. On what grounds? And that is his thoughts on it. And I don't know how much he really. I don't know. It's interesting. But my thoughts on there's a couple things that I need to explain. I have dialysis treatments that I have to go to regularly, and as such, I can no longer work, and so therefore I had to get Social Security in order to survive, to pay my rent, and to pay for my food. That's a fact. I don't like it, and also, more importantly, the amount of money that I would have to pay in order to take care of my. Worried I'm gonna anyway, is that in order to pay my my fees for dialysis, I would need to have a massive amount of money. Because it's $700, it's about $800 a treatment, something like that. Maybe it's more, I can't remember. I looked at all of the prices that is charged to, my state provided insurance. And like within months, it would be thousands of dollars, like, $20,000-$30,000. Now the reality is I happen to be eligible for a kidney, so I guess what you could do is if there was a program involved that was like, I would have to pay back X amount of money within the period of time. But if that was the case, I would probably never be able to pay it back, so I'd be in a coercive situation. So I'd probably be like a slave to whoever it was, because I could never really pay back that full amount. And I mean, I don't even know how much the kidney surgery is going to be. So that would be a massive amount. So like, let's say it's $40,000-$50,000. And then I would have to pay that amount in order to continue on, but I would never really, the job that I'm looking at is a paralegal. And I want to say that like your first months, it's like 15, and it's a normal 8-hour shift for 8 hours so what does that end up being? 8 times 5. So 40-hour work week times 15. I did the math I think it's something like, well, actually, I have a calculator. It's a phone calculator, so hopefully we'll get a regular number. Sometimes phone calculators are a little bit off, but we'll check. Let's see. So 40 times 15 is 1,600 a week times 4. So about 2,400 minus FICA. So let's say 2,100, something like that. So 2,100, and then I would owe. So I would probably have to pay money out my entire life, or I would have it would be a really difficult situation to figure it out. Mind you, I'm not saying that it should be that I shouldn't incur any responsibility for a situation like this. I don't even know how I ended up getting kidney failure, to be honest. Maybe pills from having issues with my teeth, because I couldn't pay for dental bills at the time, which was because these programs didn't exist before. So, I don't know. One of the things that I also know about, so this is the situation. So if you say, okay, well, you know what, Frank, instead of being on Social Security, we're going to give you UBI. UBI is not a thing that can be taken away. You'll be given this amount of money. And I think some of the numbers they've been talking about is bandied around is like $2,000, let's say. So they give me $2,000. But they give everybody who's infirm or has issues like mine. Or they just give everybody who they've determined need for it. But then something weird happens in the market because everybody has this amount of money that they can spend. So your money isn't worth as much because everybody has some of it. So it's like, okay, well, everybody has their UBI that they can spend. So we can charge this much for this item, but past that point, in order to get more of that money, then we'll charge more. So that's going to affect the economy, and I don't know what you'll be able to get with that money. I don't know how much that would cause inflation. That would be a concern. But also, there's the fact that when you're not talking about the firm and you're just talking about giving money to people to not work or whatever, that's a problem. And then there's a question of, okay, well, what if I decide to work, but then I would have enough money that I'd be able to get a house because I would have $2,000 guaranteed, so I should in theory be able to go to, but I'm guessing then the quality of housing would go down. So there's the whole morality of it. It's kind of a weird situation. And I don't know what my thoughts are on property with it being the most important thing. I know that it is to libertarians, to small L libertarians, but to me, it depends. Like in Maslow's. I guess it's Maslow's, the psychologist. In his hierarchy of needs, he says that there's different things that are needed, or in your personal hierarchy or philosophy. In my personal hierarchy or philosophy, I believe very strongly that human rights are more important than property. I believe that human life is more important than property. And so then that ends up being kind of a difference of opinion. And I don't know. Like I tend to agree with a lot of my very left thinking friends over some of the very right thinking friends that I've had, because it's more important to me to make sure that people are being treated well, and not, but I mean, I don't really go for the silliness where it's like names and things like that, and using proper names. And I mean, I think that if somebody wants to be called something, you should try and do that. But at the same time, I don't know if it's as important as, you know, acknowledging people, treating them with a certain amount of respect, not, making sure people aren't being kept in cages down by the border, things like that. Um, but wow, if I would have had just a little bit more UBI information, just off the top of my head, those are my thoughts on the UBI. It doesn't seem. I'm not sure if it would completely solve all the problems there, but at the same time, if you had a guaranteed UBI, it might be better than Social Security, because that's like a fear I have right now. Is that what happens if they suddenly pulled my Social Security? That really does concern me, and I hate that. I hate that I'm on the dole and I'm worried about that, because it's very not me. But I don't really have a choice right now, because I have a chronic illness that I take care of. And I mean, I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to be doing. Like for the most part, I am eating pretty healthy and staying, on the right path and everything. And then I'll be able to hopefully I'll be able to test and get on a list for a kidney starting next Wednesday, or I guess I just say Wednesday. But thanks for stepping in. I had put on the background. Just wanted to have a chill evening. Just talk about some thoughts reasonably. And if you have anything you want to say down in the comments, feel free to say it. Please keep it, reasonable, and not like Facebook, where everybody seems to know everybody else to the point that it's like, well, you're clearly this, and you go to this on Tuesdays, and let's be reasonable to each other. We all believe the same thing. There's very few of us, so chipping away at each other doesn't really make a lot of sense. Good night, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your holiday. Whether it be the family, friends, friends of the family that you choose. Take care.